Hi, I'm Patrick Johnson, and this is Behind the Screen, where I take you behind the DM screen in my campaign, The Five Kingdoms. You find yourself on horseback. The horses are at full gallop. Prince Larkin is out front, sword raised, face intent. He stretches forward slightly as if to urge the horse to go a little faster. Though you've never met him, you've known him for years. To your right is Malin Godfrey, white hair flowing behind him, feral grin on his face, and you know that he's the prince's personal advisor. You're not really sure how you know this, but if you just relax, it comes to you. Looking ahead, you see a monastery in the distance. Looking down, you see a stranger's hands holding the reins of your horse. They're your hands, but they're not. You're not you. You're Lazra Drishmartar. That's right. What a mouthful. You reach behind you to slap the horse just to see if you can, and yep, this body responds to your commands. Is this a dream? Looking to your left, you see Bella Ramon, you see Sable Bia, Yuli Valwick, Sowina Ton, and Stentor Dusai, all riding furiously towards the monastery. If you relax, you know that Lazra is excited about what's to come. Prince Larkin looks back at his friends. He catches Lazra's eye and laughs. Yah! He yells, kicking his horse, getting it to go even faster and pull away from the group. Larkin continues to pull away as they approach the monastery. So this is how I started the first session of my campaign, The Five Kingdoms. Now, as you know, this was all part of a big idea I had that I thought would be kind of cool to try as a DM and see if it would work. Now, the players don't know any of this. They don't know all about the dream sequence that I have planned for them. So this catches them all off guard. They're really stunned, like, what is going on? Which was part of my intent. I did not tell them any of this was coming. They've all rolled up their characters, just sitting around the group expecting to play the characters that they've rolled up, and suddenly they find themselves here in Prince Larkin's group. So now I've kind of established that this is going to be a dream sequence. I mean, maybe the players haven't figured that out exactly, but they know that they're not them, and they're just waiting to see what's going to happen. So my next step that I wanted to accomplish with the first session was to establish Prince Larkin as an evil figure or as an adversary. I don't do this by saying he's evil. Basically, they get to the monastery. Larkin's already there. He's had the monks at the monastery pull all the children out that they're watching, line them up in a row, and he's going down the line, looking at each one of them until he finds one that he's looking for. It's a kid that's wearing this necklace that Prince Larkin wants because at the bottom of it, the pendant, so to speak, is actually a key that opens up the Gate of Worlds. Prince Larkin needs this so that he can go get the first piece of the obsidian crystal that's missing. Of course, the players don't know any of this. They just know that Prince Larkin goes to this monastery. He lines up all the children in a row. He goes up to this boy that's about 14, and he lifts up the boy's necklace with his sword in a very deft mood. Larkin's very good with his sword. I'm just trying to show that. And he asks the boy to take it off, and the boy says he can't. And without another word or any argument or whatnot, Larkin swings his sword back and lops the kid's head off and grabs the necklace before it can even reach the ground, again establishing he's very good with his sword. He turns around and he gallops off in the opposite direction. Now, all the characters, and there's a couple of them, I think 3 or 4, I forget exactly how many in the party, that aren't being run by player characters. They all take off with them. You know, they're used to this. This is Prince Larkin's deal. They probably enjoyed it for all we know, but they take off right away. Now, Lazra, Sable, and Yuli are all being played by the first 3 characters that are joining my group. 2 more characters will join at the next session, but these are the 3 that start up the campaign. And they're all a little confused, okay? The Prince Larkin just lopped off this kid's head. They're all first level, so they haven't done any of this themselves. They probably don't think of things in gray. They think of things in black and white. So as soon as he lops off this kid's head, they're like, oh my God, what did you do? Why did you do that? You must be evil. At least that's my intent in putting out this scene for them. And I think it worked well. But they did eventually start galloping back off towards Prince Larkin. So Lazra, Sable, and Yuli catch up with Prince Larkin. There's not much of a discussion. It seems, at least from my perspective, the players look like they're still unsure about their role, and they don't want to let on that they're actually dreaming that they're Lazarus, Sable, and Yuli. They're kind of unsure about what Prince Larkin's response would be, and rightfully so, they just saw him behead someone, so maybe they should just keep quiet. So they do, and they ride along with Prince Larkin on the way back to Ban, which is the town that Prince Larkin is the ruler of. As they're cruising through this mountain pass, suddenly a boulder comes out of nowhere, hits Prince Larkin squarely in the chest, knocks him off his horse, almost knocks him off the cliff that they've been riding along. And they look up and they see, up on the mountainside, a hill giant. They don't know what a hill giant is. They've never seen one before, not a living hill giant. Now, there are statues around Ban of giants, various giants in various places, that have always been there, at least as far as anyone can remember. And after they kill this hill giant and get everybody healed up, they go up there and they check it out, and they start talking about it, and they realize that on the way to the monastery, they passed a statue of the hill giant that looks just like this. And so they realize, having not seen it on their way back, that this must be the hill giant statue come to life. Now, of course, they're not thinking of it as a hill giant. It's just a giant to them because this is the first one they've met, but that's what it is a hill giant. And this is yet another clue for them. About 800 years ago, and of course they don't know any of this, but about 800 years ago, the high priestess of the elves came up with this as another part of her plan to try and stop Prince Larkin from joining the two pieces of crystal back together. And she knew that this was going to happen based on some prophecies or some visions that she had had. And so she placed these hill giants around Ban, and she set it up so that the key, when it was found, and of course, as you would suspect, the high priestess had something to do with the key being hidden. When the key is found, and when Prince Larkin gets it in his possession, it sets off a ward that she placed on it, which causes a number of things to happen. One of which is it brings the giant statues to life. And the purpose of them is to create havoc within the province of Ban. The giants are pretty chaotic. They don't really have one leader, at least not when they first come back to life. So in general, they just go around Ban attacking anything they run across and creating a general nuisance of themselves, at least until the dragons show up. And yeah, we'll get to that later. But one of the things that the ward does do is it does wake up 3 dragons that are underneath the ocean, and it takes a little while for them to feed and get their strength back up, and then they come up out of the ocean and they fly off into the kingdom, and that the characters will see them when they go over the Crystal City, which is the first time that they appear. And we'll get to that later. Anyways, another thing that it does when he touches the key is it starts up the Firefalls, which is an old, ancient landmark that is basically lava flowing out of nearly the top of this mountain, all the way down the side, and then it'll go into a hole, like a pit, at the bottom of the mountain, and it just continues to go like that. And for reasons of physics that we don't need to go into completely here, that lava flows down into that pit. It goes into a chamber that got formed naturally in such a way that as the lava fills the pit, it heats up, and then it creates pressure and pushes itself back up, and it basically makes this continuous flow of lava coming out the top of the mountain. And they call that the Firefalls. So that starts up, the hill giants wake up, the dragons wake up, also the lizard folk down in the Sworn Swamp suddenly realize that they have a mission to accomplish as well. All these things start up because Prince Larkin stole the key, and now he has it in his possession, and that sets off that war. Now, when the players search the hill giant's body, they find some coins that are unlike any coins that are currently in the realm of the 5 kingdoms. And there's some discussion about this, and I thought it was very astute on the players' parts to figure out that these are ancient coins, and the hill giants are probably from a time far, far back in their history when these coins were in use. And for some reason, whatever it is, obviously they became statues, and then now for some reason they've woken up again. They don't know those 2 pieces, but at least they've figured out, rightly so, that the hill giants are from the past. The players gather up the coins, and they make their way back down to their horses, and they start back along their way to Ban. And then finally they make camp. And when they make camp, Larkin and Malin go into a tent, and then Malin comes out and he delivers this speech about about a part of the history of the Five Kingdoms. Now, Malin's speech. I want to try something new there too. I hadn't started watching Matthew Colville yet, or even Critical Role yet, so I can't give them credit for this. I actually have to give credit to a former DM of mine. First name is Eric, who last time I got to play did a lot of voices in his campaign. Now they were imitations of movie characters that he knew. And some of them I didn't know, so to me it was kind of cool because they were just voices. And he did them exactly the same every time he ran into the character that had that voice. It was really kind of cool. It was one of the biggest things I really liked about his campaign was the voices that Eric did. And he had certain catchphrases and whatnot that he would use over and over again. And while I'm not very good at that, I'm not a theatrical person by nature, I really liked the idea. So when I started thinking about doing a campaign again, not only did I have this big idea for the dream sequence and whatnot, but I really wanted to try and do some voices again. And I did try and do a voice for Malin's speech pattern and whatnot. And I have to say, honestly, I've pretty much dropped that idea since then. Just not something that's comfortable for me. I have done it a little bit, small bits and pieces, but I haven't done it as an imitation of a character that I know in real life, which is the way that Eric did. For Malin, though, I did. I did an imitation of Mark Twain from Star Trek, favorite show of mine. And he plays a solo guy. He's like, this increasingly hypothetical someone would not be me. Was kind of like how I was doing the voice. And it was okay. I liked it. I don't know if they liked it, but I thought it created a little bit of drama, and I did it for this particular thing. So now that we've done stepping back, we'll go back to Malin. Malin does a speech for them in that voice where he talks about the obsidian crystal being broken into 3 pieces and the 2 pieces being hidden in other areas of the multiverse. He doesn't cover the fact that them being broken off pretty much negates any normal way for us to get to those areas of the multiverse, those universes within our multiverse where these pieces of the obsidian crystal have been hidden. But he does tell them that they were put somewhere in the multiverse. The big thing that Malin is trying to do here with this speech is he's trying to misdirect the players into thinking that the High Priestess of the Elves did that for an evil reason. And he does this by saying that the elves broke off into 2 different factions, one dark-skinned, one light-skinned. And then he starts to talk about the light-skinned elves becoming prejudiced against the dark-skinned elves. First thinking of them as liars and cheats, then thinking of them as thieves and cutthroats, and then finally just thinking of them as evil. And he talks about a couple other things. He does tell them that the obsidian crystal is what makes the universe the way it is. It basically determines the physical aspects of the multiverse. And changing it by breaking out these 2 pieces is very dangerous. I mean, it's what created the world, and you're going to mess with that. And so he's kind of painting the picture that the High Priestess, first off, was doing this for the wrong reasons, and second off, maybe had a little bit too much chutzpah in doing so. And he also tells the characters that the High Priestess was successful in getting rid of the Drow Elves from the world, eliminating them, so they wouldn't be a problem for her anymore. And then he also does tell them another thing, and that is that taking off those 2 pieces of the obsidian crystal stagnated the technological development and the magical development of our world, the 5 kingdoms. And then he says, that Larkin had to go get that key from the boy because it opens up the Gate of Worlds, and that is how they're going to get the first piece back. So Malin's been fairly truthful and forthcoming to the characters in the sense that he's told them a good portion of their plan. We are going to go get a piece of the obsidian crystal through the Gate of Worlds. we're going to bring it back, and we're going to try and attach it to the piece of obsidian crystal that's underneath the obsidian castle. But he's lied about several other things too. He's lied about the reason why the high priestess did it. Because the high priestess, while maybe at war with the drow elves and may see them as evil, it's not a prejudice. The drow elves really are evil. I mean, they're really evil. So in a sense, that's a lie. That has nothing to do with why the high priestess did it. But the secondary part of what he said is actually true. It has stagnated the development. But he does not mention that that was the high priestess's goal. She wanted the development stagnated. The increasing power of technology and power of magic in the world as they developed side by side was going to cause a lot of problems. I mean, it was already causing a lot of problems, but going forward, it was going to be the end of our world. Liken it to the nuclear arms race, only both technology and magic. So it creates this dynamic that is even worse than just our nuclear proliferation that we have in the real world here. This is the way I like to approach showing good and evil in the storyline. I don't tell the players exactly what's going on. They really need to figure this out. And I like the mystery of that. I think that relates it's kind of similar to the way the real world works. Nobody comes up to you and tells you, this is what you need to do in order to solve this big world problem. They say, oh shit, this is happening. And another person over here says, no, this is what's really happening. And it's up to you to determine what's really happening. And not only that, but to come up with a plan for either stopping it or helping it along, depending on which way you think you need to go. So that's the main gist of what I did in the first campaign. And I think the players reacted to it pretty well. They're really kind of like, wow, this is going to be really interesting. They were a little, set back on their heels, but they weren't put off by it. They were just kind of like wondering what's going to happen next. And then lastly, what happened in session 1 was that Prince Larkin eventually faded off to sleep, and then all the players were out there, they're still talking and whatnot about what Malin had said, and then I told them, suddenly, your vision goes, boop, and you're sleeping again, you're not dreaming. And I likened it to like an old tube TV when it turns off, when and that was it. Most of my players, by the way, are old enough to remember that, so it didn't create a moment of, a millennial going, what? Now I should also mention before I end this video that I had not played D&D probably for a couple of years. Had never played 5e. The last version I played was 3.5. I've played 2.0. I've played Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and I've played the original from the basic set. Over the course of time that I've been playing this game, probably about 40 years. But recently I hadn't had much chance to play it. Hadn't played in the last 2 years, and I hadn't DM'd in, God, I can't remember the last time. It was a long time ago, probably 10, 15, 20 years, something like that. So I did have a lot of catching up to do, and I didn't want to wait until I had read all the books and everything like that to figure it all out. I just wanted to jump in, so we did. In fact, I wasn't even sure I was going to run 5e as I was running up the campaign. I was deliberating between 5e and 3.5, and it's kind of funny. I selected 5e just because I couldn't find my 3.5 books. I don't know where they were at. I had a whole big bag of dice that was missing, a bunch of figures, like nearly everything that I had used previous to this to play D&D was not around. I couldn't find it. I don't know where the heck it was at. So I gave the players a choice before we started the first campaign. Do you guys want to try 5e, or do you want to play 3.5? And at least the way I remember it, everybody said 5e. Either that or they said they didn't care, one of the two. And we ended up playing 5e. So I went out and I bought new books for 5e. And rather than wait till I had read them all, we just went ahead and started. So some of the things I'll talk about in these videos will be mistakes that I've made because of not knowing the rules. And we'll go over those things as they come up. So that's my video for today. Next video, we're going to discuss the players finding a bunch of orcs under the castle, the Donegal Castle in the city of Tor, and what that means. All right, thanks for watching.